So as an athlete, you're either excited or angry or disappointed. So how do you deal with those emotions, and how can you use them in your favor? Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Volleyball 101. I'm Mari Silva, a full-time coach at NBVA, and today we're going to talk about something that is really important for an athlete to be successful on the court, but not a lot of them know how to learn that skill. Today we're going to try to help you to be mentally prepared to play a game, to go through a hard workout, and to face adversities, which is part of any athlete's life. So to talk to us about this topic today, I brought my first coach here in the US. Her name is Kalie Mader. Coach Kalie is from Kansas, where she spent her first 2 years as a student athlete at Pratt Community College before transferring to Southwestern Oklahoma, where she was named to the Great American Conference All-Academic Team. As a coach, Kalie has served as a graduate assistant at Christian Brothers in Tennessee, an assistant coach at Southwestern Oklahoma, and as a head coach at Pratt Community College and Blinn College in Texas. Today, she works as the head coach at Missouri Southern State University, a D2 competing in the Mid-American Intercollegiate Athletics Association. So hi, Kalie. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited about our conversation today.
Me too. I'm hopeful that I can give someone some good information, hopefully.
I'm sure you will. So again, thank you so much for joining me today. When I thought about this topic, you're the first person that came into my mind because I know you enjoy talking about this. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say, and I'm sure it's going to be really helpful for everybody listening to us today.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. It's always a pleasure when one of your former players calls you and asks you to do something like this. So it makes me feel good.
Of course. So to start off, just would be great if you could share a little bit about your volleyball career, when and how you started playing, and then how you got into coaching.
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so first of all, I started playing volleyball in 3rd grade, and I didn't want to do it at all. I loved basketball. I agreed to play basketball, and my parents just really kind of were like, Kalie, you can do this. You need to try more things. And so I was terrible. As you can imagine, I was super tall and lean for my age, and I was pretty bad. And I just kept playing, I guess. And I had a lot of good coaches. And one both of us know, which is Misty Arnold. And she just kept encouraging me all the time, like, no, you can do this, keep going. And so I ended up playing junior college ball at Pratt Community College, and then I played at Southwestern Oklahoma State, go Bulldogs. And from there, I was supposed to be a physical therapist. That's what I told myself. But I ended up in the waiting period of going to PT school and applying and graduating. I took a GA position at Christian Brothers in Memphis, and I loved it. I just loved coaching. I loved winning more than anything, and I kept going. So went from there to Southwestern Oklahoma State. Got super fortunate that the same coach, Misty Arnold, encouraged me to take the Pratt job when I was super young. So my first head coaching job, I was 23, and I had no idea what I was doing.
And I was 21 as your player.
And Mari was 21. Yeah. From there, I got lucky again and took the Blinn job, which was a really, really good job, a good program. And now I'm at Missouri Southern, and we compete in MIAA, and it's a really tough conference. So.
Great. So going back to your playing career, do you think you changed as you got older, like mentally speaking? How did you change from, let's say, your freshman year to your senior year?
I don't know that I did. I really don't think that I changed that much. It was just my confidence grew. I will say that as you get older, your confidence grows a little bit with experience. But my mindset was kind of the same. And I think that's why I've become so passionate about the mental aspect of the game, is because I think more now, like I think in 2020, we know more about the mental aspect than they did 10, 15 years ago. And so I just don't think that was part of coaching, And now I think because of the information we do have, we can help shape our athletes on the mental side, and that can help them perform better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that a lot of people think is that you were born mentally tough, but that's just another skill, right, that you learn with time and with your experiences. So even if you think that you're not mentally tough when you're young, you can change and you can grow so much as you keep playing and experience new things in life.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%.
So now as a coach, you say now we have a lot of more information about the mentally part of the game. So how do you help your athletes become more confident and mentally tough on the court?
Throughout the years, that's grown and changed, and I'm sure it will continue to grow and change. But I think one of the things that we focus on a lot right now is the relationship we have with the game. And so as a player in the game, the reason you play is so important to me. And so a lot of people use athletics as a way to feel valued, right? So if I win, now I'm valuable. If I'm a good volleyball player, people believe in me, I am valued. And so what I try to encourage my athletes now is whether we win or lose, you're still a human and you're still valued. So it doesn't really matter. I want us to win because we love volleyball. I want us to train because we love it. I want us to love our teammates in volleyball. I don't want us to use volleyball as an outlet of validation, if that makes sense. So the relationship we have with the game, I think, is super important. And I think there's a lot of successful people who use the game for validation, but I think it just wears on the athlete and the relationships with everybody else. And I just think it's a pretty toxic situation. Yeah. So that's where most of our focus is right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think we all play because we love the game. Winning and losing is just a consequence of your hard work or commitment, but we play because we love, and that should be the main reason why we work hard every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we selected a few mental skills here that we thought would be beneficial to talk about. So the first one is setting goals, both long and short and long term. So how do you think goals can help athletes?
So I think goals give athletes a good vision. And so I like to ask my players, who do you want to be? First of all, what do you want? What do you want from this? What's your dream? And that's kind of where I like to think about goals is, what's your big dream? And then from your big dream, what do we need to do to get there? So if your big dream is winning a championship, okay, well then you need to become the best at serve receive. You need to become the best at being able to kill the ball. You need to become the best at doing those things. So we're going to have to dig into the process there, but we have to dream first. So what's your big dream? What do we need to get good at? And then how are we going to do it? So again, the how piece is super important to me. And so every day, we're going to live our dream every single day. And we're going to make sure that we're keeping in mind the person we are going to become from doing it. Does that make sense? So you can achieve something and then not be proud of who you are at the end of it, or you can achieve something and be proud of who you are. So we want to also be proud of who we are. And I think becoming proud of who you are from achieving your goal or going towards your goal comes down to the qualities you want to be as a person. And so who do you want to be is also part of the dream.
Absolutely. So that ties up to our next skill, which is motivation. So I think setting goals can really help you stay motivated and engaged, in any activity you're doing. So how do you think athletes can stay motivated throughout their career?
Well, I think dreaming is one of them. Like we talked about, like keep thinking about that big dream that you want to have happen. But also we talk a lot about the discipline or like the person you become when you do something when you're unmotivated, right? So like we're all going to have days where we wake up and we don't want to go on a run and we don't want to, and all these bad things have happened today and I don't want to go to the gym. And so I kind of take Jocko Willink's position on motivation, which is if you have it, use it. If you don't, do it anyways, And I think keeping your purpose in mind is better than, riding the energy wave that you have every single day. So that's why we want to do it. Whatever it is, do it every day, whether you feel like it or not.
Yeah, that's great. And you can even talk about burnout too, because that's something that happens a lot, especially during off season, because you don't play, so it's easy to burn out. So how do what can you do to avoid that phase of your playing career?
So I don't know if this is proven in studies, but I think that burnout comes back to the relationship you have with the game. You know, if you love the game, if you truly love the game and it's not about you, but it's about doing the thing you love, I think your burnout rate is pretty low. But I also think making sure your life is in balance is super important. You know, you're not giving up every single thing to play volleyball, but keeping in mind other things that you love, and incorporating that. So that's why I'm a big proponent of small training every day versus, you know, 4 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on this day, because I want my athletes to be able to live their whole life.
No, that's absolutely, especially in college. You know, we're all teenagers, young, so we wanna enjoy our lives as well outside of volleyball.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. So I think another way to stay motivated too is just, you know, kind of, as you say, don't think about yourself, but as about your team as well. Like I can give an example of myself. For my last 2 years of college, I played beach as well, and I wasn't great at it. I was a middle blocker. You know, we don't have that much ball control. So I enjoy playing, but I wasn't, you know, one of the top players. So I had to sit down and just watch them, you know, the other girls playing. But I tried to stay motivated because I knew that if I was, you know, working hard every day, even if I wasn't on the court, I was still helping everybody else. So even though I wasn't happy with my role on that team, you know, thinking about my teammates and how helpful I could be for them, even out of the court, that kept me motivated through the 2 seasons that I played as a beach player.
Absolutely. I agree.
So next we can talk about maintaining a positive attitude. I think this is a really common problem that we face as a team. You know, if you have one player with a bad attitude, it's probably going to affect everybody else around them. So how important it is for athletes to, you know, maintain a positive attitude, and for both themselves and also their teammates.
So I think there are 2 important skills that help shape a positive attitude. And the first one is practicing gratitude. So one thing we have in our program is a gratitude wall. And so every day before practice, the girls have to write down one thing they're grateful for, and they put it on a note card and they have to tape it up before they start practice. And I didn't know how this would go when we started because I'd never done it before, but I know the days that they don't do it. Like, it's not, I don't keep a tally mark or, you know, a grade or something like that. It's just what's part of their practice, but there's a big difference in their mindset coming into the gym if they're practicing gratitude. And it can be anything. So the one would be a daily practice of gratitude, and the other one would be the skill of reframing. Bad things are always going to happen, always, of life. And so learning to take a bad situation and reframe it or pivot the bad situation and think about, okay, how can this be an opportunity for me or for my team or for life? That skill gets us out of the negative place and into the positive place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, having a positive attitude is even a sign of respect for you, for your teammates or coaches. So I think that's something that we need to learn how to do. And even though if you're not having a great day, I think it's important to maintain a positive attitude because it's going to affect everybody around you.
I agree.
So yeah, so another important skill that can help you through tough times is self-talk. I think that's a really important one. So how do you think that skill can help an athlete on the court?
You know, one of the phrases we have in our gym is be nice to yourself, because if you, I believe anything you repeat becomes stronger. And actually that's scientifically proven. The more you remember or replay a memory, the more it is ingrained into your brain forever. And so the same goes with our words that we say to ourselves. So if I have an athlete who hit the ball out of bounds, if I see her hang her head and, you know, start lifting her arm, trying to, you know, mimic how she's going to repeat I'm just like, be nice to yourself. Talk to yourself like you would talk to your teammate. You wouldn't say the words you're saying to yourself, you probably wouldn't say to your teammate, because you know it would hurt her. So quit hurting yourself in that same regard, because, you know, it doesn't benefit you in any way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think one good example in volleyball is when you're serving. That's the only time you probably can control the game because the ball is in your hands, you're starting the point. Mm-hmm. So if you go back there and you think, oh, I can't miss this serve, you're probably going to miss it. So it's way better to go back there and say, yes, you're going to have a great serve and you're going to serve it in and maybe ace them. So I think it's the way how you think is gonna affect you, the whole situation there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So lastly, we can talk about dealing with our emotions, which is a huge part of the game. So as an athlete, you're either excited or angry or disappointed. So how do you deal with those emotions, and how can you use them in your favor?
So the same note card that the girls do their gratitude on, they also do emotional ownership. So I think one of the mistakes, at least I made as an athlete, was to kind of push down whatever emotion I was feeling because I felt like I was supposed to feel this way in this moment. So I'd kind of try to control my emotions. I'm not confident that emotions work that way. I kind of think emotions are like bad days. They come and they go, right? It's going to happen. You're going to feel very nervous sometimes. You're going to feel scared sometimes. You're going to feel hyped up. And volleyball is such a game of consistency that if we don't own the emotion that we're having and we try to, push it down or suppress that emotion, it's going to come out in a pretty bad way later. And so on that same note card, they have to write down whatever they're feeling that day. I own my sadness. I own my nervousness. I own my anxiety. I own whatever. And then we talk about kind of in the same way we talk about motivation. We talk about no matter what you're feeling that day, let's reuse it. Let's repurpose it. Let's use it for whatever we need to get done. And so, there were games last year where we're very nervous and, we mess up. And then because we're so nervous, that mistake feels 10 times more than what it is, right? And so we just say, okay, we have the energy. It might be nervous energy, but we have the energy. So let's use it. Let's own it. Okay, we're nervous. That's okay. That means it matters, right? If we're nervous, it's because we care. That's a good thing. I want us to care. So let's learn how to use that nervous energy to be productive.
Yes, exactly. I think, I was going to say that if you have emotion, it means that you care. If you don't feel anything, you probably shouldn't be there. So I think you just have to accept it and deal with it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So do you think your players, they always share what they're feeling, or sometimes if it's a bad feeling, they just hide it or don't share with everybody else?
I think they actually share it. I guess I don't really know, but our wall isn't always pretty, if that makes sense. So it's not like every time I go to the wall and look that it says happy and, excited. There are days when I look at the wall, it says sad, nervous, anxious, tired, it says all kinds of things. So I think they're being truthful. I think they believe in it, I guess. And so we don't ever hold it against anyone, if they do share something. We just own it,
So do they share their names as well? So everybody knows. I think that's good because then you know how it feels, so you know how to treat me that day. So I think that's pretty helpful.
Yeah, it's a pretty vulnerable place, right? To share those kinds of things, like what you're feeling and then what you're grateful for. But I think I've found that my kids find courage in those moments. So they're practicing courage too. And then they're also practicing empathy because, if I know you're having a bad day, maybe I'm going to, be there with you in your bad day.
Yes, exactly. I think that's helpful for coaches too, because sometimes we don't know how the players are feeling. So maybe we're yelling at them because they're not having a great day, but there's a reason behind why they're not having a great day. But if we don't know how they feel, then it's going to be hard for us to treat them in a different way.
Yeah, it took me 7 years to figure this out. And that's 7 years of being upset that a player was having a bad practice or having a bad game. And then me following up with like, hey, I expect so much more of you. Like, let's go. And then after that interaction, they'll come to my office. Hey, coach, by the way, this is what's going on. And every time I would sit my team down and say, just tell me before, just tell me before, just tell me before. And it still wasn't happening. I'm in my 7th year as a head coach. So we started doing daily check-ins via Google Sheets. So every day before practice, I get like an update of how your day is before they go into the gym, because I felt guilty. Just as a coach, you feel guilty because, you know, in that moment, I'm thinking, I got to get this kid going. Like, I got to hold her accountable. And then later, they're like, oh, I had a really bad day. Now I feel terrible. So that's been my adaptation. But you're right. The girls know each other's things because of the gratitude wall, and then I have to have my own little separate thing.
Yeah, I think that's pretty helpful. I think it's awesome. So every coach should do that, because I mean, it's going to help them too to do their jobs. I think it's a really good idea. Yeah. So of course there are many other mental skills that can help us, but we thought that those 5 would be really beneficial. So before we finish here, is there anything else you think we should share or mention, or any final advice for players out there?
My final advice would just be, I don't know that, at least for me as a young player, I don't know that I spent enough time getting to know myself, you know, just observing. Meditation is the act of observing your own thoughts. And, you know, younger me was like, whack, like, I don't want to sit still for 5 minutes. But what I've learned, if you can find any way, whether it's journaling, meditating, walking, any way to acknowledge where you're at and what you want and how you're feeling, that to me leads to a more confident person. And so part of being confident is knowing who you are, what you want, what you value. And I think that young people, young women, I don't know, don't spend enough time asking ourselves that question. And I think we spend a lot more time trying to be like other people, trying to go get what others have. Okay, she has a cute dress. She's confident. I want the cute dress, right? Or she has the AirPods. I want to be like her. I'm going to go get the AirPods. Instead of spending the time to get to know who we are as individuals and what we want. And once we know that, that's where our confidence, you know, radiates from. So that too.
Yeah, that's great. So I wanted to share one story that happened on our freshman year. I don't know if you remember that. For our spring season, you gave us a homework that we had to read this book. Do you remember that? Yeah. So the book was called Mental Toughness by Jay Billis. It was about Coach K and how his team were mentally tough. And you assigned each chapter for each girl. And we had to read that chapter and then share with the rest of the team what we thought or what we learned. And I remember that you chose me as the first person. Chapter number 1 was mental toughness. And I was pretty scared because back then I didn't speak English at all. So, you know, the fear of having to speak in public, it was kind of too much for me. But anyway, that was actually like a really good chapter that I loved it. And I remember reading 2 or 3 more chapters because I liked it so much. So did you assign those chapters based on what your player was? Did you try to use each chapter to help each individual with their weaknesses?
Yeah, I did actually. So I read the book, and with each chapter, I thought which player would benefit most from this chapter. And so I did, and you know, probably for you, you're very good at school too and studying, and you do things very organized and put together, and you put a lot of thought into things. And so that was also part of it, is like, I was like, okay, the first person I need to go needs to be someone who's going to do this really well, who's going to spend some time, so you can set the standard for everyone else after that. And so I think you did a great job on that. And I'm glad that it resonated with you, you know, and was able to be something that you carried with you for those years to come, because unfortunately I only got to coach you for the 2 semesters. And so it always, to me, is good that I was able to give you something that you carried with you.
No, yeah, absolutely. I even bought that book later because I liked it so much. And I think it was pretty helpful actually, because again, my freshman year everything was new. I didn't even speak the language. So that mental toughness needed to be, you know, part of me, which I think with the years, you know, I learned how to be mentally tougher. But yeah, I think that was pretty helpful. And it's always nice to see those different ideas that coaches come up with, that, you know, trying to help those athletes to become more confident on and off the court.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And, you know, we have, every team I've had since then, we read a book.
Mm-hmm.
And usually we do, now we're up to 2 a year for each team. And so it's been good. It's one of those things that, when your coach says, all right, you need to go buy this $12 book. Now, like, it's volleyball. Why are we, you know? But again, it's always made my teams more mindful of their own actions and allowed an opportunity for them to get closer and to understand each other a little bit better and learn. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think as a coach too, everything we do to the players on the court, we're trying to help them off the court as well. Once their volleyball career is over, everything they learned on the courts, they're gonna carry with them. So I think that's the main things to keep thinking about as a player. The thing to think about there is that whatever you're learning on the court, you're gonna carry with you for the rest of our lives. So that's as coaches, that's our goal.
I agree. And I think that's why the mental aspect of the game is so important, because the processes we use mentally, we carry off the court more so than we do our ability to keep our arms straight and pass with our angles. That is only in volleyball that we get to use that. But the way we practice, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we are positive versus negative, that carries off the court, whether you want it to or not. So
yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. So again, thank you so much for taking the time here today. I really appreciate it. I had a great time. I think it's going to be really helpful for everybody who decides to listen to this podcast and videocast. And yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, and send this to me somehow so that I can share it on my social media for sure.
Of course. Thank you.
I'm
Bye-bye.
honored.
Have a good day.
See ya.